Welcome to the Jasper Blueprint, a podcast for established business leaders to explore what it takes to build a robust business in a rapidly changing operating environment. The volume and scope of decisions you need to make and the uncertainty and constraints you operate within aren't going anywhere. So this time that we have together here is a window that you can carve out to think, reflect and question so that you and your business can grow. Unexamined beliefs about the purpose of business limit your ability to make money. Let me show you a different way to think about, build and run your business. Because business is not a zero-sum game. Someone doesn't have to lose for you to win. Your choices aren't binary. Money and meaning aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, I'll show you how merging money and meaning is the competitive advantage your business has been missing. Let's jump in and I'll break down the process for you step by step so that you can build a business you're proud of. Today we're going to really focus in on the importance of merging a whole bunch of different ideas, because the connecting of the dots, the understanding that you are operating within a system and connected to all things is actually where we start to be able to tap into the power of merging money and meaning, of creating business models that allow us to generate a win-win and a business we can be proud of. And while that may seem obvious, I talk about merging money and meaning, and you may think there's lots of people talking about this, or heaps of different business owners believe this, and there's different people I can go to learn this skill. I would actually argue that there are very few people who are genuinely merging these ideas. There are people that you can go to get help to grow and scale your business. There are people that you can go to and get help on how to set up a foundation or how to do philanthropy well. There are organisations who are equipped to take donations and do amazing work in the world. But getting to a place where you actually honour and are unapologetic about the pursuit of both the money side of your business and the meaning side of how are you actually contributing and what's the difference you're making, having those two being seen as equals and not coming at them from the perspective of taking certain times where you prioritize one over the other, or where you run the business in a way where there's actually an undermining of one or the other happening. That's actually really rare to find genuine merging. And it is where I have spent my career. It is what I am obsessed with. And so I'm going to labour the point with you today, and I'm going to really try to encourage you to drop into a different way of thinking about business and to question the approaches that you've done and taken to date, to question those experts or consultants or people who you may have engaged to help you with this type of work before. And ask yourself whether part of why previous attempts have never stuck is that they were too disconnected. And so as soon as money got tight, or there wasn't enough time, or you felt stretched, the tendency was to go back to that way of operating business where you saw the focus of business being profit maximization, and where you fell back into the trap of thinking, I'll be able to contribute and be generous and give back when the business is doing better. If you've never been able to make your approach to running your business really feel integrated consistently, then it's probably because the people that you have engaged to help you with that have still tended to lean in one direction or the other, rather than being the types of people who are equipped to train you and to transfer their knowledge in a way that allows you to integrate both. So merging money and meaning is the essential part of the process that allows us to actually get all of the competitive advantages that I'm going to show you about. And that means that we're no longer in a position where we can only bring meaning into our businesses if it's doing well or one day in the future. It's something that we can all do now. It's going to look different for each of us, depending on our business, depending on where we're at, what we care about, all of those factors. So it will be unique to you. But I absolutely believe that every single one of us can be bringing meaning into our business now. Last week, when we focused on the mastery of business modeling, I talked to you about the fact that when we shift into a way of focusing on a business plan instead of a business model, or when we fall into the two camps trap of having an external camp approach to business, then any of that separating out, any of the ways of thinking about business that keep things disconnected is robbing us of the power of both. So what I want you to think about and have as the overarching framework for today as we talk about merging these ideas of money and meaning is that we don't want to get into a way of operating where it's like, here's our work, here's our life. Here's where I'm in work mode and trying to make as much money as I can. And here's where I'm trying to feel fulfilled as a person and actually live out a life that I love and that I'm proud of. We want to be genuinely integrating those and finding the power in creating that synergy of a self-reinforcing loop. So people are going to tell you, even those who you might really respect, they might be mentors of yours, coaches, consultants you've used in the past, there are way more voices in the world that are going to tell you that you need to sort out the business first and then you can give back or think about contribution. There will be plenty of people who are telling you you need to maximize profits, make as much money as you can, and then think of all the good you can do. You can give back and be generous to all of the causes you care about because you've made so much money. There will be people that are really pushing hard on those types of narratives and acting as if it's logical and makes sense. They'll be saying that adding other things in now or being generous are things that can come later if you get the making money piece sorted first. And while they act as if and present that case as if it makes perfect sense and it's really logical, it's not actually how things work, folks. Because if you operate from a place of scarcity and from a place of really limited siloed thinking that doesn't connect dots, that doesn't see how interconnected things are and spot patterns and see how something you do over here has a flow-on effect over there. If you are someone who stays in that scarcity and thinks, I don't have enough yet to think beyond trying to grab as much as I can for myself, if you're in that grasping, desperate mode, then that sets in motion ways of thinking, ways of operating, ways of making decisions, ways of prioritizing that are only going to get more and more entrenched. And as you have more, you will just want more. As your business grows and expands, there will always be the next thing that's out of your reach and that you need to hoard that money for growth and expansion. That means it will always be pushed off for one day later down the track that this can happen. The world doesn't work in that way of allowing us to say, I'm going to amass huge, epic, massive wealth and then somehow completely change who I am as a person and how I've been operating for decades and suddenly become incredibly generous and giving. That's not how it works. It will exacerbate and make you more of what you already are. So what I want to encourage you to instead do is to be saying, okay, that old way of thinking, firstly, question whether it ever actually worked, because I don't think it did. If you have made money in a questionable way, I don't think you suddenly wash away all the damage you did just by giving away a small percentage of it or even a significant percentage of it doesn't take away from the fact that you were disrespectful and taking advantage of others in the making of that money. One doesn't eliminate the other. So leaving aside the question of whether it ever worked, because I don't think it did, it is no longer a way that society, your customers, your employees or investors are going to allow you to operate, even if you thought it was a good idea. So if that is not the way we're going to operate our businesses, and also if we're going to think about the fact that we're all living longer, and if you're the kind of person who actually had the get up and go to start a business, who's taken those risks, who's got in there and is someone who loves to set big challenges, big goals and drive towards achieving them, chances are you probably aren't actually someone who wants to or is going to retire at some age that was set decades ago and now means you'd have half your life just hanging around doing nothing. So you're probably going to be active for a much longer period of time and contributing and operating in some kind of business capacity. So what we want to do is instead bring all of those elements of what makes us fully human and fully inspired, fulfilled, and having that sense of meaning, while also doing it in a way that isn't a distraction or just a cost or an expense, but actually makes sense, and where we can do it so that it maintains our motivation over a much longer period of time, but so that it also actually makes financial sense in the business and strengthens the financial stability of the business and helps us build a more robust, sustainable organization over the long term. When we have that kind of mindset and we call out the thinking that's telling us to make a whole bunch of money first and focus there and then give back, we are going to be firstly ahead of the curve. So we're going to be actually able to leverage opportunities quicker than other people. We're going to have spotted risks before they do and been able to mitigate them. And we will have a much more solid foundation on which to build owning a bigger percentage of a market, or having at least that really solid brand recognition, having a really solid position in the market, or being respected in your industry. Those kind of pieces are what you will build up if you take this approach. So ignoring that common wisdom, which is not actually wise, and instead going back to what's deeply human and true, and being able to merge these things back together. The piece that you need to be able to do as a leader is to learn to merge these ideas of money and meaning. When I say that, what I want you to think about is that what you're not doing is that prioritizing one over the other. So you're not saying, for the moment, I need to prioritize the making money. I'll get to the meaning piece. Equally, you're not saying, I'm just going to focus on the meaning. This is important work. I really care about it. And I'm just going to hope that we don't run out of money and send ourselves bankrupt, right? We're not picking one over the other. So instead of the prioritizing or doing that either or approach, we're going into a piece that's looking at this in terms of perspective. What perspective are we taking at any given time? And that is shifting to what I call the both and mindset. So it's going into a place which others may say, hang on, those two things are contradictions. They're mutually exclusive. You can't have both. You have to pick one. It's either this or that. You're saying, no, it's actually not. Two things that seem like contradictions can be equally true. I have a both and mindset, and I'm running my business in a way where I unapologetically merge money and meaning. That piece shifts us out of these black and white approaches to the world and to the way we think and to our ideas about business, and instead opens up this really beautiful multicolored perspective and allows us to play in the grey, in the messy spaces, blurring between things. So here's the suggestion that I want to make for you, or the kind of suggestion I'm offering. You can take it or leave it. It's your call. But as a leader, your job is to see further ahead than other people. It's for you to be able to anticipate, to mitigate, to leverage, to be able to tap into what's coming. That anticipation piece, right? So you are in the position you're in, and your job is to not being stuck down in the weeds, not micromanaging, not obsessing over and never lifting your gaze. Anyone can do that. As a leader, you have to be able to have that bigger vision, see into, bigger horizons, longer time frames. And so the mantra that I always use for myself and for the leaders I work with is that what we're trying to do is to think like a system, act like an entrepreneur. So when I said to you, it's not about you choosing to prioritize one thing over the other. It's about you taking a certain perspective. This is where what we're doing as a leader is we are doing that zoom in and zoom out, right? So there's 2 steps. When you move from prioritizing to perspective, you're going to always be in motion, moving between these 2 places so that you can stay ahead, so that you are ahead of the game, so to speak. And that piece is that you want to be able to zoom out to see the whole. That's what the ancients would have called, the general. You're wanting to see that big picture, spot the patterns, see the aspects where you can speak into and anticipate, where you can have some kind of confidence because you've looked over bigger sets of data or a wider range of factors or different sectors, or looked into different operating environments. So you have zoomed right out. You have a much bigger perspective of the whole. That's the piece of think like a system, right? So that's the zooming out. The other perspective that you need to be able to take is to zoom right back in. And this is the piece where you zoom in to the specifics of your business. So this is where you're going to get right down to act like an entrepreneur, where you drive to action, where you switch from what the ancients would have said, the general, down into the particular. So you go, okay, I'm informed by that understanding of the big picture. Now I'm going to drive to action. I'm going to act like an entrepreneur. I'm going to take this into my business and I'm going to bring it to ground. That piece is the exciting aspect of what I want to encourage you to do. When we merge money and meaning, we are able to run a better business because the foundational element, the big driver of what someone who runs a business like this has in their skill set or toolkit is the ability to not prioritize one thing over the other, but to choose perspective, to be able to zoom in and zoom out, zoom in and zoom out. Go big picture, understand all of the aspects of the system you're operating in, drill down to the particulars and act like an entrepreneur. Get that aspect of more than just proving how smart you are, actually be brave enough to have the courage to do something about it, right? Those types of business leaders are the types of leaders who are going to run businesses that actually succeed in the current market and in the incredibly volatile, changing markets that we're going to be in moving into the future. So if you find this sort of conversation interesting and you know that it's a way that you need to think about your business, but you want to have that zoom in, zoom out piece, you want to think like a system and act like an entrepreneur, and you're aware that there's currently a gap, that while you're curious, you don't quite know how to do that, I would love for you to join us at our free 2-day masterclass, where I can walk you through in far more detail these aspects of the key pillars that need to be in place in the way you think and operate as a business leader to be able to make this shift to merging money and meaning. The workshop, as I said, is over 2 days. The details are in the show notes, so jump in and register for that free masterclass. Joining us, even if you don't end up signing up to work with us formally in the 6-month program after the workshop, just in doing the workshop, I am going to absolutely pour into you. I am there. It is live. You can ask questions. And I want you to leave that feeling that you have had some of those breakthroughs and you are now able to think about your business differently and build and run that business differently. So the workshop, the masterclass over those 2 days itself is going to be a game changer, well worth your time. If you can't join us live due to time zones or anything, there will be recordings, so still sign up. And it is your chance to start to unpack this, to be a bit curious and figure out what does that merging of money and meaning look like in your business, your particular business, not just generally speaking. So jump into the show notes, sign up for that. And then you'll also find in the show notes the details around our free resource, which talks about the 5 steps that you need to take to reclaim decisive leadership. So while you're waiting for the workshop to kick off, also grab that free PDF and have a read of that just to, again, get those ideas happening, start to capture any questions you might have or things you want to ask me during the workshop. And I am really looking forward to seeing as many of you as can join us live or on the recordings in the workshop. So sign up for the 2-day masterclass. Notes are in the details are in the show notes, and grab that PDF while you're at it. So 2 free options this week for you to really go deeper and explore what does this look like in your business.